Donnie Yen, the gentleman of action between two skies. When a punch becomes a punctuation mark. Some actors are remembered for a line, a smile, a glance. Others only need a stance before the storm, the weight settles, a breath is pressed, and a story begins. Donnie Yen is in the second camp. With him, action is not a display of muscle, action is a grammar. Every punch and sweep, every throw and lock, reads like a semicolon placed in exactly the right spot. It regulates rhythm, shapes emotion, and moves the audience from surprise to understanding. Donnie Yen's career traces an unusual flight path, taking off from Guangzhou and Hong Kong, banking over Boston, and touching down on Hollywood's red carpets only to take off again as a storyteller who writes with his body. From the sage-like master of the Ip Man saga to the elegant blind assassin Kane in a global action universe, Yen proves that an Eastern temperament can speak clearly to Western tempo, and that action cinema, done right, can be beautiful and truthful, kinetic and humane. This article is a long walk through the layers of Donnie Yen's craft, origin and discipline, philosophy of work, the decisive rhythm changes, the roles that defined him, the mathematics of choreography, the way he talks to the camera, and why, at an age when many slow down, he stands on a new peak. Origins: a body raised by discipline. Born in Guangzhou, raised in Hong Kong, and shipped to Boston as a teenager, Donnie Yen carries two educations in one body: traditional martial grounding and a modern, multicultural environment. His mother is a renowned martial artist who treats the body as a form of ethics. In his household, basics were never beneath anyone: plant the foot right, settle the center, lead the breath cleanly. Anyone who is trained knows the hard part isn't the spectacular spinning kick, it's repeating the simple things until they become reflex. That's the blue flame that burns quietly inside a body. Hard to notice, strong enough to warm an entire career. In Boston, Yen met music, skating, and American street cinema. He realized for the first time that martial arts were not confined to courtyard forms, they could sync with rock and hip-hop, dialogue with boxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu. A hybrid attitude sprouted: honor the traditional base, but escort the body into risky experiments. When he returned to Asia, Yen brought more than experience in a suitcase, he brought a stance, fluent in two bodily languages, the precision of the East and the beat of the West. Entering cinema, learning to speak camera. In the early years, Yen arrived on set with two weapons: speed and the ability to read the lens. Many can move fast, few understand how fast the camera should see. Yen learned early. He knows where to stand so a strike is fully legible, when to temper force so impact feels real yet remains safe, where to drill a tiny pause between two blows so the cut has a handhold. On set he isn't just an actor, he's a composer, and the camera is his instrument. What's striking is that despite his martial pedigree, Yen rarely shows off. He takes the opposite route: minimalism. If a shoulder crank resolves a fight in 3 frames, he won't stretch it to 10. If a parry plus a step across the line topples the opponent, he won't garnish it. That austerity makes his action feel closer to poetry than cheering, compressed, but evocative. The Donnie Yen signature, where MMA meets wushu. What separates Yen from many predecessors is his decision to thread grappling. Throws, locks, chokes into a tradition long dominated by wire-fu and airborne grace. When a Yen character changes levels, drives, and finishes with a joint lock, the audience senses a different aesthetic, not the crescendo of flight, but the snap of physics when a center of mass is broken. In his hands, the human body is a precision machine of force, leverage, friction, inertia, engineered like a lab experiment. In that language, strikes become clauses. A jab is a small exclamation to start the sentence. A low kick is a subordinate phrase, quiet but structure-shaking. A double-leg takedown is a line break, a chance to recompose the paragraph. The choke or armbar is a full stop. MMA wushu hybridity isn't a trend piece, it's the natural outcome of a life split between two aesthetic systems. For Yen, there's no border between traditional and modern. There's only the question: what does this scene need to feel true, to mean something, to serve the character? Ip Man. A monument to restraint. Most of us met Donnie Yen via another man, Ip Man. Beneath the Wing Chun chain punches stands a teacher who doesn't grandstand. On screen he doesn't flex, he stands upright, eyes lowered, hands open before his chest like a silent gull amid a storm. Yen does the hardest thing: he turns ethics into aesthetics. When the character no longer needs words, the body carries the language. The pull of that man isn't in who he defeats, it's in the standard he holds. Quiet, proportioned, decisive. In those frames, Yen offers a simple message: strength grows from inner discipline. The film soared not just because the fighting was elegant, but because audiences saw themselves in that restraint. They too want to inhale, stand firm in chaos, and strike only when necessary. Churret, faith as a path into another galaxy. If Ip Man is a lesson in moral bearing, then Churret Inwi is a lesson in faith. A blind warrior crossing a battlefield with a thin smile, muttering a mantra that became universal. Yen adds a dab of East Asian wit, the mischief of someone who knows fear only lives when you name it wrong. Churret's movements are seldom extended, they're clipped, as if someone trimmed the fat to keep the core. Faith here isn't a wall quote, it's a way of walking, of leaning away from a bullet, of listening to wind through a staff. Kane, the gentleman minimalist of violence. Modern action universes have plenty of noise, guns, engines, bodies through glass. Kane enters like a pencil line across black. He's blind, not weak. Courteous, not soft. His fights surprise because you can almost hear the hits, the tiny hiss of air being cut, the step on floor, the short breath. It feels like a dagger wrapped in velvet. In Kane, Donnie Yen reconciles many lines. The instructor's discipline, the street fighter's pace, the Asian gentleman's poise, and the weary hush of a man who is paid. In lesser hands he'd be a demonstration, in Yen's hands he's a compact tragedy, neat as a haiku. The craft of choreography, the mathematics of feeling. Great action design isn't inventing hundreds of exotic strikes, it's knowing what to cut away. On set, Yen often builds scenes with a rule of 3 lines and 1 landing point. Body line, shoulder, a hip, and he must read inside the frame. Camera line, the lens position should show head or torso of feet in one motion, minimizing choppy cutting. Light line, shadows reveal force and direction, giving bodies sculptural mass. The landing point is an emotional beat, either the opponent drops or the character realizes something. A fight doesn't end on the last blow, it ends at the inner shift. Viewers used to the hit, cut, done rhythm may be surprised. Why does Yen let a character exhale, lower his head, or freeze for half a second before exiting the shot? Because that half second is punctuation, a space for feeling. The camera as partner, a dialogue with the lens. Cinematographers like to joke that Yen can enter a set, glance at the lighting plot, and guess the focal length. Exaggeration or not, it rings true, he understands everyone's job. He doesn't behave like a star to be serviced, he's part of the orchestra. Is the lens at 35 mm? Then shoulders will frame tight. Is the stop at f/2.8? Adjust strike speed so motion blur tastes right. You can shoot a perfectly fine fight without knowing these things, but with them, the scene changes completely. When the camera is a partner, choreography becomes conversation. Yen knows when to speak loud and when to whisper to the lens. Loud is a path-clearing strike, whisper is a finger shift or a sidelong look. The Hong Kong spirit, fine-tuned for a global palette. Hong Kong action has a tradition, high speed, dense cutting, bodies like dance. Exported raw, it risks either losing its bones to westernization or staying so local it's hard to digest. Yen chooses the middle path, tuning. He keeps the skeleton, discipline, restraint, control of center, and adds skin, modern textures, environmental storytelling, sound tempo. The dish becomes both familiar and new. Western audiences can eat it, Asian audiences don't feel betrayed. The body as prop, props as scene partners. In many scenes a chair, a railing, a corner of wall becomes a partner. Yen knows props expand imagination, a tossed glass isn't just a crash, it's a line of flying shards, a rhythm break that steals an opponent's balance so the next move makes sense. Integrating props demands the ability to hear space. Miss the beat and you get a real injury. That's why Yen's fights rarely look like solo acts, they're duets. The performer and the room.